You got a 5% raise last year. Congratulations. You felt relieved, maybe even a little proud. You're making more money than ever before. So why does your bank account feel exactly the same? Why does everything cost more? Why can't you get ahead? Here's the truth they don't want you to realize. You didn't get a raise. You got robbed, and the thief was invisible. Welcome to the inflation tax, the hidden system that's been stealing your wealth while you weren't looking. Let me introduce you to David. In 2023, David made $75,000 a year. He felt solidly middle class. Groceries cost him about $400 a month, gas for his commute maybe $200, rent was $1,800, life was manageable. He wasn't rich, but he was okay. Fast forward to 2026, David now makes $82,000. That's a 9% increase over 3 years. Not bad, right? Here's the problem. Those same groceries, now $600 a month. Gas, $320, rent, $2,400. His salary went up 9%, but his cost of living went up over 30%. David isn't making more money, he's falling behind while running faster. And this isn't an accident, it's engineered. This is the inflation tax, and it's the most regressive, most hidden, most devastating tax that exists. Because unlike income tax, which you see on your paycheck, the inflation tax is invisible. It doesn't show up on any form, the government never admits they're taking it, but they are, every single day. Here's how it works. When the government needs money, maybe for stimulus programs, war funding, infrastructure, whatever, they have two options. Option 1, raise taxes openly. People hate that. Politicians lose elections over it. So instead, they choose option 2, print more money. When the Federal Reserve creates new money, and they've created trillions in the past few years, that new money doesn't magically increase the wealth in the economy. It just dilutes the money that already exists. Imagine you're at a pizza party. There are 8 slices and 8 people. Everyone gets 1 slice. Fair. Now imagine the host cuts each slice in half. Suddenly there are 16 slices. Sounds like more pizza, right? Wrong. It's the same pizza, just smaller pieces. You're not getting more, you're getting less per slice. That's inflation. The government doesn't create more wealth, they just divide the existing wealth into smaller pieces. And who gets those new pieces first? Not you. The banks get it first, the corporations get it next, the federal government spends it, and by the time it trickles down to your paycheck, every dollar you earn buys less than it did before. This is called the Cantillon Effect, named after an economist who figured this out in the 1700s. Whoever gets the new money first benefits. Whoever gets it last gets destroyed. The rich get richer because they're first in line. The middle class gets obliterated because they're last. So when you hear inflation is at 3.5%, what they're really saying is your money lost 3.5% of its value this year. That's not economic news, that's theft. You worked all year, you saved, and the government printed money that made your savings worth less without asking your permission. Here's the part that makes this truly insidious. Your salary goes up, so you think you're winning. You got that 5% raise. But if inflation is running at 6%, you actually took a pay cut. You're working the same hours, producing the same value, but you can afford less than you could last year. The raise was an illusion. You're poorer, but you feel richer because the number on your paycheck is bigger. This system punishes savers and rewards debtors, but only rich debtors. Let me explain. If you have $10,000 in a savings account earning 1% interest and inflation is at 6%, you're losing 5% of your wealth every year. Your $10,000 becomes worth $9,500 in purchasing power. You did nothing wrong, you saved responsibly, and the system destroyed your wealth anyway. But if you're wealthy and you borrowed $10 million at a fixed 3% interest rate to buy assets, real estate, businesses, stocks, and inflation runs at 6%, your debts shrink in real terms while your assets inflate in value. You win twice. The poor and middle class save cash and get destroyed. The rich borrow money and get richer. This isn't a bug in the system. It is the system. And here's what makes people really angry when they figure this out. The government knows. They know that inflation destroys the middle class. They know that printing money transfers wealth from workers to asset owners. They do it anyway, because the alternative, cutting spending or raising taxes honestly, is politically impossible. So they tax you through inflation, silently, invisibly, and then they gaslight you by saying inflation is just part of the economy, there's nothing we can do. That's a lie. They created it.
They benefit from it, and they're counting on you never realizing how it works. Let me give you the real numbers. Between 2020 and 2026, the M2 money supply, the amount of dollars in circulation, increased by over 40%. 40% more dollars chasing roughly the same amount of goods and services. That's why housing prices exploded. That's why your grocery bill doubled. That's why you feel broke despite earning more. And who benefited? Asset owners. If you owned a house in 2020, it probably doubled in value. If you owned stocks, same thing. But if you were renting, if you were saving cash, if you were working a salary job and not invested in assets, you got destroyed. The wealth transfer was massive, and it happened in plain sight. So what do you do about this? Because awareness without action is just frustration. First, stop holding cash long-term. Cash is melting ice. Every year you hold it, it's worth less. This doesn't mean spend recklessly. It means understand that saving in dollars is a losing game when inflation is high. Second, move into assets that hold value or appreciate. Real estate if you can afford it, index funds that track the stock market, even commodities like gold that historically hold value. The wealthy understand this. They don't keep wealth in cash. They keep it in things that can't be printed. Third, if you have debt at a low fixed interest rate, don't rush to pay it off if inflation is higher than your interest rate. This sounds counterintuitive, but if you borrowed money at 3% and inflation is 6%, that debt is shrinking in real terms. You're better off investing extra cash than paying off cheap debt. Fourth, demand better. Vote for politicians who understand monetary policy. Call out the invisible tax. Most people don't even know this is happening. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Share this knowledge. The inflation tax is real. It's regressive. It punishes savers and workers. It rewards asset owners and debtors. And it's been running at full speed for years. The government calls it economic policy, but what it really is theft. Sophisticated, invisible, and devastating. The system is rigged, but once you understand how it's rigged, you can stop playing by their rules. You can protect yourself. You can build wealth in a way that inflation can't destroy. Now go protect your wealth.